बस यहाँ पे ठीक है। Right, so in this video we have discussed about Karnataka recently brought hate speech and hate crimes bill. Okay, so basically the important is that Karnataka has become what? India's first state, okay, that has brought in this hate speech bill. Right. Now, what is the significance of this bill? First of all, penalties wise, if you look, we have anywhere between 1 to 10 years of penalty as such. Okay, plus fines can also be imposed. These are just basic provisions to understand. What we have to remember from examination's perspective is two things. First of all, in this particular bill, what we have fixed? Collective liability for organizations. That means any organization, its member, if it is known to promote certain hate speech, not only that individual but entire organization can be penalized as such. Second, bill has brought in digital content regulation. That means on social media platform or YouTube, for example, some hate speeches are put. In that case, YouTube would be expected to what? Take it down, remove it, right? So if it is okay, so that is the point here, right? Background again, India had legal gap because till now we did not have any kind of definition. Earlier, if we look here, in the Indian Penal Code earlier we had, now we have replaced it with Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. So overall, when you talk about hate speech, it is not properly defined. Second, the focus is more on public order rather than right-based wrong. Example, if hate speech is being this shown against certain individual or is seen against certain individual, in that case, when government takes action, if it is felt that such kind of speeches might disturb public order, so rather than having a right based approach, we have public order based approach as such. Existing legal framework under which hate speech is dealt is on the this, if we talk about the central legislation, what do we have? Earlier you had IPC, now we have section 196 of Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. When a speech can be considered as hate speech? First, it is promoting enmity between two groups as such, okay, communal violence for example, right? Second problem, what do we have? Though we are utilizing it, conviction rate is very poor. As per the NCRB data, only 20% of the cases is where conviction has been ensured by police as such. Second is, if someone is trying to insult someone on the basis of religious affiliation, then that can also be considered as what? Type of hate speech. Third, what do we have? If any speech can bring public disorder or is trying to spread some misinformation, right? That can be considered also as what? Hate speech. So these are different acts of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita under which different kind of hate speeches were dealt. But as far as a standalone hate speech law is concerned, Karnataka has become the first state as such. Right, earlier development you would have read about Shreya Singhal case 2015, section 66A was struck down by Supreme Court as such. Right, second was 2017 Law Commission has proposed that new hate offences should be brought in. Tehseen Poonawalla case we have in again 2018, nodal officers they have recommended should be appointed in the government to deal with especially which kind of crimes? Hate-related crimes. Supreme Court concerns also they have raised on hate speech. Overall gap was there in the digital regulation. If someone is putting on digital platform, how to deal with such speeches. So now in this bill, first of all, clearly it has been defined what will be considered as or construed as hate speech. What those speeches that largely are trying to promote disturbance and animosity between people on the basis of religion, okay, on the basis of caste based, okay, someone is trying to insult you because of certain caste association you have, or on the basis of gender, or on the basis of sexual orientation, right? And the last what we have, even if someone is this what can I say, is saying something on the basis of the disability a person is facing. So these all grounds can be considered as what? Valid ground, okay, to classify the speech as hate speech. Punishment wise, nothing, simple, 1 to 7 years if someone is committed first offense. However, if someone is repeat offender, in that case the punishment, the quantum punishment can go as high as 2 years to 10 years as such, right? What is the significance? Exemption has been given for the public interest case, potential national model, it can act as a national model, right? Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, we can incorporate similar kind of provisions later. And overall, this debate is about free speech versus dignity as such, right? Both are what? Kind of having confrontation here. To what extent you can allow free speech, and to what extent free speech should be controlled so that it does not compromise the dignity of other individuals as such. So we have to maintain what? Balance between two rights, right? Then cognizable and non-bailable. If someone is found to be committing this offense under this particular act, cognizable means police can suo motu start their procedure investigation, can file their own FIR without any complaint, and the person can be arrested without the arrest warrant. That is what we mean cognizable offense. Second, obviously it is non-bailable in nature. Automatic bail would not be granted. It will be on the discretion of court if they feel that they can grant bail. Then compensation to victim also is something, a provision that has been added here, okay, that if someone is hurt by the hate speech, okay, if someone's character has been assassinated or emotional psychological damage some person has felt, in that case compensation should also be awarded. That is the overall objective. Second news is related to biosecurity. Biosecurity in India, because of the rising bio threats, this is something that recently External Affairs Minister has talked about, okay, stated. So first of all, why it is news? Because you know that all across the world biotechnology is developing or growing at a very fast pace as such. Okay, new method of or advanced method of biotechnology we have seen. Growing role of non-state actors, that is the biggest concern. Okay, because we have a lot of international legislation that control use of biological weapons or biological organisms at the national level. But if suppose a country is not involved, non-state actors means terrorist organization, organized crime groups. If they are involved, in that case, what happens? Controlling it will become quite challenging in such. Overall, in India, response system is quite fragmented in nature. So keeping these in mind, we have again started to focus on biosecurity as a national security issue. Okay. Then, first of all, to have a conceptual clarity of what is biosecurity. What is biosecurity? Two terms are sometimes used, biosecurity and biosafety. When you talk about biosafety, we are focused upon what? Preventing accidental or accidents, we can say, accidental release of pathogen, accidental release of microorganism. Biosecurity, on the other hand, is more about what? Preventing intentional misuse of biological agents, toxins can be there, right? There can be use of biotechnology and all that. So few years back you have anthrax. Okay, it was felt that people are trying to circulate anthrax in certain powder and all that. So it covers all kind of security, lab security, prevention of deliberate outbreaks, protection of human, animal and plant health and all that. Understand? So basic what you have to understand, biosafety versus biosecurity. Safety is accidental release, security is focused upon preventing intentional misuse. Evolution of norms, if you look today at the international level, you have BWC, same way that we have CWC, Chemical Weapons Convention and Biological Weapons Convention. It was brought in year 1975, and the countries who are signatory of this convention, it ensures that they do not develop and use which kind of weapon? Biological weapon as such. If any country has this particular stockpile and weapon before they became the member of this convention, in that case, what does it mandate? Nation will have to mandatorily destroy it. Okay, they have to completely destroy it as such. So despite reduced state level biosphere because of geopolitical instability, emerging technology and overall increase in the non-state actors and all, the risk has obviously increased. Now the question is, why India needs a stronger biosecurity laws? Because vulnerability is quite higher. A recent case few weeks back, if you remember, we have discussed about resin poisoning, okay, where it was for where one person that belonged to, I think, Jaise Muhammad, okay, he was found to having resin and he was trying to use this to this basically cause death of people. So first of all, India has long international border, okay, and many of the borders are what? not properly secured and guarded as such. Borders are porous in nature. So illegal smuggling can be carried out. The biological weapons or biological agents have to be brought in inside India. Second, biodiversity is very high. High population density basically we talk about. In those areas, even a small amount of biological agents can cause what? Can be much more lethal in nature. Okay, the number of deaths can be quite higher. Second, agricultural dependence India has. Crop livestock attacks are there. They can threaten food security and economy. Biological agents are not only used to attack humans. They can also be used to attack what? Animals and agriculture, crops and all that. Right, recent toxin, same thing. Biotech advancement is going on. So many times the technology that we are evolving, gene editing technology or synthetic biology, all this can be of dual nature. Dual nature simply means it can be used for the peaceful purposes as well as for destructive purposes. Like nuclear technology is example of what? Dual use technology. We can peacefully use it to harness energy. We can destructively use it to what? Cause bomb, okay, or make bombs as such. India's institutional setup, if you consider, we have DBT that is largely focused on what? Biosafety. Biosafety again, you remember what? Accidental. Then we have NCDC. If there is an outbreak, National Center for Disease Control will carry out surveillance, okay, to ensure that the outbreak can be stopped, okay, and restricted at a shortest, quickest possible time. Department of Animal Husbandry and Dairying that deal with livestock disease control. Then we have Plant Quarantine Organization of India that largely focus on what? Protection of crop against biohazard. And then finally, what do we have? Any disaster, chemical, we have discussed in disaster management, chemical disaster, nuclear disaster, right? Biological disaster is what? Disaster. So NDMA will have authority to look into that also. Now we have several laws and treaties such as EPA, Environment Protection Act 1986. Then we have Weapons of Mass Destruction and Delivery System Act we have brought in 2005 that deals with the genetically modified organisms, okay, and the hazardous microbes, right? It criminalizes if anyone is using bio weapons and all that. So these are things. Plus India also is what? Member of Biological Weapons Convention as well as Australia Group. Australia Group you would have to study about things. I think MTCR would have studied about Wassenaar arrangement you have, right? Then we have the NPT and then you have Australia Group. So basically it prohibits any use or any dual use material that cannot be exported without having proper safety in place as such. So EPA, WMD Delivery System Act, Biosafety Rules 1999 and RDNA guideline 2017. These are some institutional mechanism. Third topic is related to the recent commissioning of DSC A20. Okay, this is India's first indigenous, what kind of vessel? Diving support, that is a DSC, diving support craft. Okay, so India's first indigenous, that is important, indigenous diving support craft. It has been recently commissioned under Indian Navy. At which base? India has several naval bases. Visakhapatnam has Eastern Naval Command. Kochi has headquarter of Southern Naval Command. Maharashtra, Mumbai, you have the Western Naval Command and all. So major boost to underwater operation capacity is expected after the commissioning of this vehicle, and it reinforces India's push towards self-reliance and defense. We have discussed about many of the naval ships that is being commissioned, okay, in our current affairs classes. One theme that you'll see coming or originating out of it is what? Indigenous. And in most of cases we have focused at least 70, 75, 80% of the component should be indigenous, should be manufactured in India also. The same trend we have seen, we are seeing continuing here in the commissioning of DSC A20 as well. Now the question is, what is diving support craft? So diving support craft is a special naval vessel that is designed to support underwater diving operations and such. Okay, for example, in the coastal areas specifically, right? We talk about in coastal areas where depth is very, very shallow in nature, or harbor areas, port area. Right, some accident has happened, someone has basically this vessel has sunk and all that. So we have to rescue and carry out relief operations. There it can also be very, very helpful here, because overall in the water it provides what? Its role is to provide a stable platform. Using this stable platform, what divers will do? They will able to go inside underwater, carry out whatever missions they want to carry, again can come back, again they can get the support here, right? And they can then do carry out the operation further as such. What is the primary roles? If you look here, what are the basically operational functions that this particular this craft will do? So underwater repairs and maintenance. Okay. Second, what do we have? Harbor clearance and inspection tasks as such. Third is support for salvage operation. Salvage operation you would have read many times. that some fire occurred or broke out in some vessel and that vessel sunk. Now, it's not that entire 100% of that vessel will be what? Destroyed as such. On that vessel, what do you have? A lot of important components you can find, a lot of important systems that you'll have that can be saved. Saving means what do you call it as? Salvage. Okay, so that operation can be launched by using this as a support base. It also facilitates diving mission in coastal and shallow waters. Diving missions can be carried out for multiple purposes. Again, even in case of accident, suppose a passenger ship was traveling and some accident happened, the entire passenger ship has, a lot of people have basically drowned. In that case, you have to rescue body also. What do you require? Diving vessel. Okay, from there divers can go and keep on rescuing the bodies or basically taking out bodies. Enhances responses during same emergencies and underwater contingency as well. So that is the primary role overall. Strategic significance also we have here because of this, because it overall enhances what you can call as Navy's operational flexibility. Earlier, it's not that DSC we did not have before. We also had before, but that was largely used for the deep water operations. Okay, deep water operations mean high sea area. This is significant because where it is able to operate in the shallow water, coastal areas and all that, right? That is significant. Strengthened indigenous underwater salvage capacity, same thing, reduces reliance on foreign platforms. Okay, as we can see, supports same Atmanirbhar Bharat, right, in defense that we are trying to do, build domestic shipbuilding and marine engineering expertise also, because it's not only creating 1 to 5 ships, right? If you once start to develop something indigenously, especially in the defense sector, gradually what will happen? You will have the development of entire ecosystem will be created. Okay, imagine that MSMEs are roped in here. So MSMEs are making 20-30% of contribution as far as the component is concerned is of MSME. If they keep on getting more and more orders, what will happen? We'll see rise of the MSMEs, more and more employment will be generated here. Plus, once you are building defense related items, what we are doing? You are also developing skills. So after 10, 15, 20 years, what we can say? Engineers, technicians, operators, they will be much more skillful, right? And that can be capitalized for what? More indigenization, more weapon development and all that. So that is the significance here, that every vessel that we create indigenously, it overall contribute to our defense ecosystem. Right, other research, other recent Indian Navy inductions to talk about, this is what we have discussed. DSC is responsible, capable of carrying out operation in which kind of waters? Shallow water coastal areas. Other what we have? INS Vistar. Again, you can see what kind of vessel it is. Diving support vessel. But this cannot be used in coastal area. This can only be used in where? Deep sea operations when you carry out. Okay, deep sea operations means suppose that flight is right, this aircraft is flying, suppose it met with accident, what will happen? Somewhere it has collapsed in the deep ocean. There also what you have to do? Okay, do the salvage operations or carry out research and all this to understand what has happened. There it will be used. Right, then we have INSV Condil, that is indigenous sailing vessel we have created. Frigate, we have discussed Himgiri, earlier classes we have talked about. Under project 17A, we are discussing several stealth frigates. So INS Udayagiri, also same class. INS Surat, that is guided missile destroyer and all that. So these are some of the recent inductions in the Navy, apart from the others that we have discussed in the last classes, right? That is the DSC. Other is MH-60R Seahawk, a new induction. The Seahawk is a name of helicopters that we have inducted in Indian Navy under INAS 335 as such. So location where we have inducted it? INS Hansa, okay, that is in Goa. This is also what base? Indian Naval Base. Okay, so Indian Naval Base in INS Hansa in Goa, we have inducted MH-60R Seahawk helicopter. The second squadron of these helicopters we have inducted in Navy. Already one squadron is operational in Indian Navy's. Name of a squadron is what? Ospreys. Okay, a question can be asked, for example, that MH-60R Seahawk aircraft helicopter basically is part of which of the squadrons? It is part of Osprey squadron. Why we are calling it Osprey? Because Osprey is the name of a bird that is hunting fish, so fish hunting bird of prey, and that is a kind of quality. Okay, this helicopter also, chopper also exhibit as such. If we talk about MH-60R Seahawk, we have not developed it indigenously, we have imported it. Where we have imported it from? United States. Okay, so US we have a company that is called as Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin, under that you have Sikorsky. So Lockheed Martin has built this helicopter. And in US, we have a very famous helicopter that is used for the land-based operation called as Black Hawk operation. Okay, sorry, Black Hawk helicopter. For example, Osama bin Laden, okay, when he was killed in Pakistan, which helicopter was used by US Marine Forces? Black Hawk. So similar variant US has developed for operating in which kind of environment? Maritime environment. So that is why Black Hawk, Seahawk, okay, similar name. What is the purpose? It is not designed for a single purpose. It has which kind of helicopter? Multi-role naval operations it can carry out. We'll discuss what kind of operations, and it is distinct from other V-22 Osprey's other aircraft, but that is only used for transportation purposes. So it is quite different from that aircraft as such, even though it is part of same squadron. Now, what are the roles and mission profile? As we can say that it is very versatile kind of helicopter. That means it can be used for carry out which kind of warfare? Anti-submarine warfare. Okay, it is fitted with several instruments. For example, you have sonar. Okay, dipping sonar it is called as. So from this helicopter, you can dip sonar inside water. What sonar will do? Emit sound wave. Sound wave will bounce off the submarines, and when you further see this reflected wave, record the reflected wave, what you will understand? The location of this submarine. Once you locate the submarine, helicopter is also basically installed with torpedoes. Torpedoes can be launched to destroy and damage the submarine as such. So anti-submarine warfare from helicopter. Okay, it seems this not very easier to understand, but that it is capable of doing. Second, obviously, what it can do? Anti-surface warfare. If any ship is moving on the surface, ocean surface, then helicopter can carry out reconnaissance operation, can also cause damage and destruction. Then third, what do we have? S and R, search and rescue operation. In the case of emergency response, same thing. Okay, somewhere you have cyclones, right? And for example, Sri Lanka recently had witnessed cyclone. So India sent help, and Indian Navy also sent what? A lot of helicopters there, okay, to carry out search and rescue in the areas, the coastal areas and all that. Medical evacuation, that is understandable, it can carry out. Plus, most important, VERTREP operation, as it is called in Navy. VERTREP stand for vertical replenishment. Vertical replenishment means, for example, a ship is sailing, okay, Indian naval ship is sailing somewhere in the ocean as such. Now, it is required to have what? Weapons, for example, or even suppose some food items is required for the people who are there. Now, in the absence of this helicopter, the ship has again to come back to dock, have to load off everything. Again, I had to go back. So this unnecessary journey is something that can be avoided now, because this helicopter can simply come in the coast. They can carry whatever they require, water, food, whatever is required, ammunitions, and they can again drop it where? On the ship as such. Or moving object from one ship to other ship, that can also be carried out by this helicopter. So that is what we call as vertical replenishment. Vertically, your resources are getting lifted and then transported to the whatever destination you have, ship or ship basically. So that is the mission profile. Overall fleet strength and acquisition, if you look at 24 such helicopters Indian Navy has acquired till date. Overall contract value is of how much? 15,000 crore rupees. Okay, so the value is not important. Okay, examination perspective, this you can skip, no one is going to ask you. Plus we have replaced this. Earlier also we have such operations being performed by Sea King helicopter that we have imported from Britain. But now these helicopters are very, very old, so we have to replace it, and that is why we have replaced aging Sea King with the Sea Hawk as such. Operation capability, obviously, because it is modern helicopter, new helicopter is much more better. Now, threat neutralization, if you look at what kind of threat neutralization capabilities it has, it can neutralize both conventional threat as well as non-conventional threat. Conventional threat means directly when a country faces threat from another nation, like India versus Pakistan, India versus China. So, for example, China will have what? Submarine. They can send it in the coastal waters of India to cause some damage and all that. So, that can be utilized. How? Anti-submarine warfare we have discussed here. Second, Pakistan can send their frigates, can send their destroyers, aircraft carriers and all that. So, that can also be tracked and targeted by these helicopters. Mine reconnaissance, many times countries, they put mine in the coastal areas. For example, if Pakistan feel that Indian Navy is coming to attack them in Karachi port, they can put mines in the coastal area. So Indian ship will come in contact with those mines and basically will explosion will happen. So before sending ships, reconnaissance of mine can also be carried out by these helicopters as such. Okay, so you'll know that location of mines and whether there is a possibility of mine-based attack. And obviously deep sea surveillance, because using dipping sonar and all that. Thus, unconventional threat is also something that is of asymmetric nature, where country is not directly involved, but can be using terrorist organizations, organized crime groups and all that, okay, to cause damage and threat. So what can be example? Say maritime terrorism that you have. right? Piracy and smuggling. To counter it, we can use this helicopter as well, because recently we have seen in the Red Sea areas, lot of piracy based attacks was observed there. Yes or no? Right? So Gulf of Aden region. Before also Somalia coast, if you look, what do you have? Known for piracy based attack. So any container ship, oil container ship moving through that area, pirates were able to stop it, jump over it, and they used to take all these people as hostage, and the demand for what? Money, ransom and all that. So overall what will happen? India will have to bear the burden of that, right? Because suppose that Gulf of Aden is through which we are receiving certain oil as such. If the oil shipping companies understand there is a high risk, they will charge what? Higher cost for that. Insurance premiums will be much more higher. So overall it will impact economic interest of India. So we need to neutralize such kind of threat, and that is where this helicopter can play a very important role. Seaborne infiltration, simply illegal migration, okay, and all that. Hostile fishing boats, port and offshore asset sabotage. Terrorists might be coming to harbour, Mumbai harbour, Goa harbour. Why? To cause some destruction, bomb blast and all that. So they can be also targeted there. Plus drone based threats or unmanned threat and all that. Now we have imported this from US, as I told you, and it's not that we have just imported it now. The responsibility of US is ending. We also have, apart from 15,000 crore of helicopters we have brought, we also have signed a sustainment agreement that is valued at roughly 8,000 crore as such. This sustainment agreement will be valid for how many years? 5 years. That means any kind of support that will need for these helicopters, for trading purposes, okay, if we have maintenance operation, repair operation, changing of components and all that, it will be done by who? US companies. So spares, training, repairs and all that. And also if helicopter needs maintenance, it does not have to be taken to US as such. It will be done where? In India. So US will set up a maintenance operation base, repair operation base in India, so that the helicopter can become airborne again at a very fast rate as such. Imagine that helicopter, if it got some problem, you are transporting it to US, again you are bringing it back to India. It will take what? Lot of time. Okay, so to avoid such kind of delays, we are focused on developing MRO base in India itself, and that is why this sustainment operation agreement we have signed. Last topic is related to the recent statement that was given by Ministry of Home Affairs in the Parliament of India, when the question was asked related to what? Border infiltration. Infiltration means illegal entry into India from the border areas. So in last 2 years, what MH report has stated in Lok Sabha? Total border security forces have apprehended 878 infiltrators, right? This is the data for last 2 years. That is the first point, why it is news. These data you can use because in the security you have to study about border management. You also have to study about security forces and their mandate. So in both of those topics, if question is asked, you can use such kind of data as such. Okay. So same thing we have discussed in last 2 years. Which borders these 878 infiltrators were coming from? Three borders: India, Myanmar, India, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan. So this data is not pertaining to all the borders that we have with different countries. This is with reference to 3 countries. And why question was asked? Because to review the border security, especially because in last couple of years we have seen violence breaking out in the state of Manipur, in nearby state of country of Myanmar, and lot of illegal migration taking place there. Basic again simple. What is border infiltration? Simply we can say unauthorized border crossing. Okay. Illegal migration also is a type of border infiltration. Ethnic conflict is the main reason why along Indo-Myanmar border we have seen lot of infiltration these days, because we know that Myanmar is in the what we call as state of civil war as such. So people are not very comfortable living there. And also the problem is that you have Myanmar's military. For example, you have Arakan army, and this is Chin state that is bordering with the Manipur state of India. So the problem is Myanmar's militaries are forcing the youth population of this Chin state to fight for them. Arakan army is forcing them to fight for them. So it's not that they are just silent spectators. They are being forced to join the army, join the forces where they can be killed as such. So to flee such kind of problems, they are crossing illegally in the Indian border because it is easier. Movement of insurgent also is example of what? Border infiltration. Right? For example, we have in Manipur, what do you have? Kuki National Army, for example. Right? You have the Meitei insurgents and all that. So Naga insurgents and all that. So in the Myanmar, Bangladesh, Pakistan, also in the west, the reason behind infiltration is one, and that is border is what? Very porous in nature, easier to infiltrate because you do not have single plain area where you can put guards everywhere or fence the entire border and no one can cross. Okay, it is made up of what? Dense forest, hills, riverine terrain and all that. So obviously you cannot secure the border with full 100% security as such. Now, if you look at the Indo-Myanmar border, because we are talking in the context of violence in Manipur and illegal migration in Manipur, what we can say that total length of border is how much? Roughly 1600 kilometers, that you can keep in mind. Now, if you look at the fencing, fencing is only in how many kilometers? 9 kilometers. Okay, so less than 1% of coverage you have as far as fencing is concerned. That is why I told you border is very porous, easier to infiltrate as such. Dense forest, hill, mountain, poor connectivity also make it easier, because even if the security forces get this intelligence that some infiltrators have entered to the border areas or planning to enter through border areas, by the time they reach that area, already infiltration have occurred. Why? Because connectivity is poor, right? So there is no roadways, no railways. So it takes time for the security forces to respond many times, even if they have the adequate intelligence as such. So that's the problem. Trend of infiltration, if you compare in last 10 years, pre-2021, what we had? Annual double digit in which we had seen infiltration. Double digit means below 100 overall. But arrest was also what? Relatively low in nature. Key trigger in recent years, we have seen increase in the cases of infiltration. Why? Because some trigger has happened. What are the trigger? Myanmar coup. That has changed the entire Indo-Myanmar border balance as such. Apart from that, what we had? Manipur violence also. That also has led to a lot of insurgent groups being active between India and Myanmar. A lot of people like Kuki tribes you talk about. They have fled. Okay, Manipur also. So that's the problem. 400 plus apprehensions per year we have seen in 24-25, which is obviously what? A sharp upward trend. Here what we have? Less than 100. Here what we have? More than 400 plus. So we can say 4 times, at least 4 to 5 times increase we have seen in the instances of border infiltration due to certain key events that has taken place along the border areas. Now, keeping this in mind, Government of India has made some changes in what we can call as FMR, Free Movement Regime, along the Indo-Myanmar border. It was introduced in 2018. Okay, FMR, I think maybe we have discussed in the class also, that the ties or ethnic ties between the people of Myanmar and Manipur or Mizoram is what? Very strong. Same tribals are living on Indian side also, Myanmar side also. So these tribes are basically extended family. They would want to meet their relatives. They would want to participate in their marriages and their cultural functions and all that. So to facilitate that, government has stated that people from Indian side can move up to 18 km in Myanmar's side, and people from Myanmar can move up to 18 km in Indian side as such. So this was, 16 km. This was the original provision. This movement was which kind of movement? Visa free movement. So largely for Naga groups, Kuki-Chin groups, okay, so they can easily interlink with their ethnic groups on the other side of border. This was brought in. 2024, some changes were made. One changes was that government, what it said, that it will carry out fencing throughout the entire Indo-Myanmar border as much as possible as such. And it said also that we are planning to completely scrap FMR. Okay, so that caused a lot of furor because local groups became kind of concerned about this. But in December 2024, again government stated that we will not scrap FMR. On the other hand, what we will do? We will regulate it. Okay, we will do the changes, we will not abolish it. Now, what are the changes we have done? If you look at the Indo-Myanmar border, okay, this entire border is what? Starting from here. Okay, you have the Mizoram, then further what you have? Manipur, then we have Nagaland, and then you have Arunachal Pradesh, 1600 kilometers. So government stated that earlier you were allowed to move up to 16 kilometers, okay, without visa and all that. Now that will reduce to how many kilometers? 10 kilometers only. So we are not scrapping it, but we are simply reducing your freedom of movement from 16 to 10 kilometer, and now you will not be able to cross anywhere. Total, how many gates we have? Right now, 43 designated gates you have. Only if you are crossing through these gates, right, you will be allowed to do so. If you are found to be crossing from some other illegal routes and all that, if you're caught, you will be dealt as per the law. FMR will not apply in your case. You can only get advantage of FMR if you pass through these 43 designated gates. Right? Why? Think about it. If you are passing through designated gate, that means you are passing through the border security forces and all that. So you will not be able to bring contrabands like weapons, arms, ammunitions, or the trafficking of drugs and all that. Right? But despite having these gates, if you are going through some other areas, that means your intention is not to simply meet people. Your intention is to what? to engage in some kind of crime, trafficking and all that. That is why you will be punished. This is the point. Plus, you will have biometric registration so that your entry and exit can be properly recorded. When did you enter? When did you come back? Right? What you did if you stayed there for many months, for example. Government can ask question that why you are spending so much time there, right? So, to ensure overall improve the security situation, rationale is what? To have a security balance with humanitarian sensitivity. Government is understanding that people will have need to meet their relatives, but at the same time we have to balance it with what? Ensuring the security interest of India is not compromised. So these are the changes that we have seen. So these are the total 5 topics we have to study in this particular week. Now we can look at the few questions from the topic we have discussed. Okay. So first is related to what? Karnataka hate speech bill. Okay. What is the correct option? Right, 1 and 2 only. Okay, simple. So that is the second is what? Related to the which of the following factors increase India's vulnerability to the bio threats? Right, high population density, ecological diversity as such. Second, what do you have? Fragmented institutional framework and rapid advances in synthetic biology. India's non-membership, that is obviously an incorrect statement. India is what? Member of Biological Weapon Convention. Then, which of the following statement about DSCA 20 diving support craft are correct? One, 3 and 4. Okay, so it is catamaran hull vessel designed for stability. Catamaran hull vessel is also able to operate in the coastal areas in water and all that. Okay, so that's the point. Right. Now coming to importance again, which is the most important topic here? Hate speech law directly relevant to your syllabus, not only in the general studies 3 where you have security and all that, because hate speech is part of internal security also, because it causes communal violence, disturbances and all that. But it is directly linked to which other topic? Which other subject? Polity, because any good legislation, new legislation can be asked about it. What are the features? Direct questions many times they are also asking. What are the features and provisions? Okay, how it will be able to reduce the instances of hate speech, to what extent it will be successful, what are the limitations and all that. So from legislative perspective also you have to completely cover it. So cover it from 2 dimensions, security based dimensions as well as polity based framework. Biosecurity again very important, because directly related to which topic? You have to study about the different forms of terrorism, plus disaster management will be applicable here. And from prelims perspective, they keep on asking questions, if you look at PYQs, about institutional arrangement. So they have asked questions about CWC. They can ask questions again about what? BWC, Biological Weapons Convention and all that. Right. Then we have border infiltration, again very relevant, directly related to your which concept? Border management. Plus FMR has been changed. Question can be asked about the changes that has happened. So both prelims as well as mains question can be asked about this, right? So third important. These two MH60R, DSCR 20 will not have to spend a lot of time. Okay, I told you simply have to remember what few important facts about prelims. Again, for any aircraft, any helicopters that we are talking about, or any ship that you talk about, what is the most important point I told you have to keep in mind, right? So what kind of ship it is, whether it is developed indigenously, whether it is imported from outside as such. So these are just facts we have to remember. So largely you have to focus in which topics, on which topic? These 3 topics. This is again you have studied in static all the things we have discussed here. What do you have to do? Just simply add the data. Okay, so data addition is required. These 2 are kind of new content you would find. So you can add in your notes as well. So that's all.